Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Usually when we get together, he and I talk about what we're going to talk about. I'm not really sure what it's going to be today. I know it's going to be good because he's fantastic. And all I have to go with here is the problem is life is okay. That statement kind of goes against itself, or does it? We're going to dig into that. Is it okay if life is okay? I'm not really sure. He will direct us properly on that. He's a success coach, mentor, author, speaker, helps so many people. Dr. Bary is here to help you find your magnificence. Welcome back, Bary. How are you?
I'm well, Steve. I'm well. How about you?
Doing well. I'm processing this. The problem is life is okay. From that statement, what do you mean by that?
So a couple of things. Years ago, when I would go visit my dad, he would say, "How are you doing?" I'd say, "I'm okay." And he'd say, "Oh, you can do better than that." And it irritated me because it was okay. And it was like, it tapped into an old message that I'm never good enough. No, even if I say I'm okay, I can do better than that. And what I've realized over time is there's more to life than being okay, just okay. And that's what he wanted for me. And that's the magnificence. Do you feel magnificent about your life, or is it okay? I was at a state, this is probably 8 years ago now. I was at Cape Cod, walking along the ocean, and my life was okay. It was good, actually. I was semi-retired. Life was okay, but there was no spark in it. I was just kind of going through the motions. There wasn't anything bad, just wasn't anything exciting. There wasn't anything magnificent.
Gotcha.
And that was the beginning of me coming across, I've shared the story before, about a Facebook ad about a sprint triathlon. And me having spent all of my life, far back as I can remember, being told and reminded and have demonstrated to me that I am a lousy athlete. I talk about I was that kid at recess when they would choose up teams. Not only was I the last one, they would then fight over who had to take me, because I was seen as a liability. It wasn't even neutral.
Same. That was me. Yeah.
And then I something in me, and I define it as the voice of my inner magnificence, drew my attention to this sprint triathlon. And I didn't even know there was such a thing. All I knew about was the Hawaii Ironman, and I always had such respect for the folks who did that. But I looked at this sprint triathlon, and it's a half a mile open water swim, and I know how to swim, and it's a 12-mile bike ride, and I know I've got a bike. I know how to ride a bike, and it's a 5K trail run, and I've got sneakers. I can do 5K. Then I had my first ever full-fledged panic attack in one of the training sessions for the open water swim. And what I realized is that here I was training for what I always saw as almost one of the most elite sports there is, as a triathlete. And here I just put myself in that company. And I was way over my head psychologically. But I'll tell you, when I crossed that finish line and completed that, the feeling that I had of accomplishment was like something I hadn't felt in years. So it wasn't that my life was bad. It just, there was more to it that I wasn't tapping into. And that then kind of opened the door to me starting to do Spartan races. And I think last week I might have shared with you, I did a 10-mile Blessing of the Fleet here in Narragansett, Rhode Island. And there were 494 participants, and I was older than 492 of them.
Wow.
And was a great feeling. I didn't know that while I was doing it. It was when I got finished and was looking back, just curious about the results. Um, and what a great feeling it was to be in that company. And so what I know is that um, a lot of us, we're in a place where life is okay, but there's a spark that's missing. The spark might be um, we don't have any goals anymore. The missing piece might be that we don't really stop and think and reflect. The missing piece might be taking care of ourselves. The men's group that I host this past week, we were talking about how we take care of our bodies or not, and raised the question that if my body was a friend of mine, would I treat it the way I do? Would I give it that kind of stuff to eat? Would I, you know? Um, so what I know is that there's a magnificence inside of us that's way beyond okay, and that's what I want to help people tap into. Does that give you some clarity?
Absolutely. And when you were training or in the open water, the first thing that clicked in my head, because a lot of people say this, is imposter syndrome. It sounds
Right.
like you were feeling that. I'm here.
Absolutely.
I can't do this.
Absolutely.
But you didn't know you couldn't do it until you could do it.
Right. And
And
what was ironic about the panic in the open water swim is I didn't realize that the tide was out and I could have just stood up, but but I was floundering in 5 feet of water.
right. Yeah.
Um, and that's one of the other kind of ironies is sometimes when people talk about, oh, I was in water and it was 40 feet deep. But, if it's more than 7 or 8 feet deep, it doesn't matter if it's 1,000 feet deep. You know,
Yeah.
I need to stay on the surface no matter what the depth is.
And if you're, a number of yards out, I guess, you could float on your back. And but yeah, I totally see the challenging situation. When we say our lives are okay, can that also be they're just okay because of the things around us? If we were to take some of these things away, people who don't serve us, job that's not just right for you. If you took it away, maybe the shell, the core would be okay, would be really okay.
It might be. Um, but I think for a lot of us, a lot of people I know have settled for the life they have. Um, like I said, they don't set goals anymore.
Mm,
Um, they they don't make a point. They don't live consciously. It's just one day, I'll do the next day, and I'll do the next day. And there's a lot to be said for living life one day at a time.
yeah.
Um, but living life with purpose, living life with consciousness, um, with being mindful of how I treat my wife, how I treat my friends, how I treat strangers, um,
Mm.
embracing failure, um, looking for what's the lesson in this rather than, oh, I screwed this up. Okay, so maybe you did, but what's the lesson? How can you be a better person because you failed?
I truly believe we don't know how to do that.
I think well, say more. What do you mean we don't know how to do that?
We don't know how to make our lives better than okay. I think there needs to be accountability. Like we could take a look at somebody's life and they're like, yeah, things are all right. Yeah. But then you would say, what would make it better? And I think a lot of us would say, hmm, yeah, maybe one or two things you could identify, but then we don't know where to go with that.
So my question is, um, when was the last time you felt pure joy?
Personally, got to get back to you on that one.
There you go.
Yeah. And then it's also subjectionable how you define pure joy. So, somebody may say, I had an ice cream cone. That's pure joy. It could be something as simple as that.
It might be. It might be because there are lots of those little moments, the little things that do embrace and tap into a sense of joy. The question becomes, do we really appreciate it?
Well, that's another question and a valid one because those little things can make such a difference. And those little things, I had one 2 days ago. I was going to go to the gym, run a little bit late. I'm like, okay, I'm reading a book about manifestation. I was like, let me read the book. The patio, the deck was wet from the rain. The cushions were wet. I'm like, but I want to be outside. So I took my beach chair, popped it in the garage, sat down in the garage, cup of coffee. I didn't care who drove by. And I'm like, this is actually really good. And then I just visualized even looking forward. I said to myself, I could be in the middle of nowhere, somewhere in a rural place upstate, and be just as happy if the right pieces were there. That could
Yes,
be that could be perfectly fine right now. And I was actually just looking at a slice of what was in front of me, a couple of trees, building here. And it was like I was kind of fantasizing for a moment while I was in that book. But yeah, it was a joyful 40 minutes of just hanging out, not even worrying about it, and digging into a book, something I don't normally do. And I think maybe that could be part of it too,
it could
doing
have
what you
been.
don't normally do.
It could have been. But you were truly in the moment,
Yeah.
and and for whatever reason, you you could have, oh geez, the patio's wet, the deck chairs are wet, now I can't be outside, crappy weather again, when's this going to end, and start down that road.
Sure.
But and this is the magnificence that I'm talking about, that is in us, that said, wait a minute, that's all true, but I want to be outside, I want to read a book, I don't want to be wet, how do I make this happen? And you did.
With beach chairs, one of two that I just bought because I treated myself. So
Okay.
it was even better because I went to the beach and I have these other chairs that were my ex's, and they're just not very comfortable. Just
Time to get rid of those.
time to get rid of those, right? They'll serve a purpose at some point, but they're not designed for true comfort. So I just ordered literally last weekend. So I was
Okay.
like, yeah, I got the chair sitting right here. All right, this is great. And it was just nice. It was a nice little moment, just by myself, just hanging out and digging deeper into the book. And I read something, and I'm going to ask you about it in the book that stood out. It was about manifestation. Do you believe that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, or we're human beings and we have spiritual experiences?
No, no, my bias is that we're spiritual beings having a human experience.
I'm leaning right over there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. This is just a vessel. This is just,
Yep. Yep.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Because when we're not here in this thing, that the spirit lives on
Right.
and there is connections to it. And whether you believe this stuff or not, I've talked to mediums, psychics, many of them. There's a lot of people that aren't legit. There are people that have some kind of ability. They're even friends. And I try to punch a hole in what they do, and I can't.
Right.
So I have to go with it. And it's so specific. And that says to me that if we weren't here in human form, our spirit is somewhere and it somehow connects some way, I don't have that answer. And that would give credence to what we're talking about.
Absolutely. And if you've ever been in the presence of someone who died, you know that something is missing. There is a moment when the person exhales, something leaves the body lifeless.
Yeah.
Um,
And people who are in hospitals, deal with hospice, will always say the same exact thing.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So I think I think there's actually evidence for what we're talking about.
If you believe in energy, yeah. So, um, but the life being okay, is that okay for some? If you feel it supports you, if it's just okay, is it okay?
Um, it can be okay, and it's certainly better to be okay than not okay. But what I know is there is more, and I want people to experience the more.
Or at least explore the more, or getting to whatever the more is.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's the whole thing about we talk, so we say it so tritely, moving out of your comfort zone. Um, you know, will you regret having failed, or will you regret never having tried?
I got to think about that and process it. Regret having failed, or regret never having tried. Um, if you talked to me 5 years ago, it would be the first one. Now it's the second one.
Yeah, yeah,
Definitely. Because you got nothing to lose, typically. And it's just fear. It's the fear that we have of failing at something, or the fear of the unknown. And if I make this change, this could change over here, and I can't have another change. Life is full of change, and once you fully understand, embrace it, and realize it, which it took me time to do, um, it's not so hard. It's and it sets you up for the next change, because there's going to be another one, and then one after that, and another one, and one after that.
um, when we stop changing, we're dead, and 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 that can happen to us emotionally, it can happen to us intellectually, it can happen to us physically. But life is about change. I mean, even breathing, we're changing the air that was the
Hmm.
gas that was in our body.
Hmm.
Every breath, we're changing the chemical gases in our body.
Never thought of it that way. Even your skin cells are different today than they were yesterday. And I'm talking about the surface skin. People have dead skin. It's gone.
Right,
It's new
right,
stuff today.
right.
And same thing with the makeup of even your body. It's always changing. It's always changing.
Yes,
Hmm.
absolutely. Um, so change is is a necessity for life. Um, but you were right about the reason we choose not to do things, and the reason we stay in the comfort zone is because of fear.
Yeah.
And and what I want for people, for other people, is to live life without fear. Yes, I can be respectful of of the danger of electricity and grabbing a bare wire. Um, but there's a difference between being respectful and being fearful. And so many of I spent so much of my life making so many decisions that were fear based.
Same.
I didn't want to look bad. I didn't want people to laugh at me. Um, and sometimes when I think about it, there's a part of me that says, um, "What's this old guy doing trying to do this? People are going to laugh at him, and I don't want to be that guy." And then there's that other part of me that says, "Yeah, I do want to be that guy."
I
I do.
totally want to be that guy. And when people, I tell people my age, they're like, "Are you kidding?" I'm like, "No." It's like, what's the secret? I don't know. And I say, if I didn't spend time in the sun, shouldn't have done it, should have listened to mom.
Yeah.
And I minimized my stress, which I did not do. I probably look like I was 12. Because I let stress, and it's a fact of life, but why? And where's the stress come from? Fear, fear of
Absolutely.
change. Yeah.
Absolutely. Um, but stress has a bad reputation. because even in our conversation right now, if there weren't some stress in it, the conversation would be totally flat. So there is, Hans Selye was the guy who came up with the term eustress, EUSTRESS. There's a stress that brings out the best in us. I mean, think about athletes who are flat, their performance is flat. We've got to have enough stress to perform optimally. Stress beyond that, our performance goes down, we choke.
Yep.
But there's that space between having no stress at all and being overstressed. And that's kind of what I want us to strive for, the balance that I challenge and invite people to look for.
And can we look at it this way too, where if you have some stress because of things that are going on, maybe you're trying to multitask and do all this, get this all done today, to make it a challenge, to say, oh, okay, now I'm going to try and make it fun, or I'm going to challenge myself to get that all done without worrying about it. Multitask in a short period of time. Challenge yourself. Can I do that? I think
I'm
I
going
can.
to turn it. I'm going to turn it into a game I play with myself.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, that framework of, okay, here's a challenge. Let's see how I do with this, as opposed to, oh, here's a bunch of stuff I got to get done, and I've got this deadline, and so I can either set it up in my mind as something that is full of pressure, bad pressure, bad stress, or wonder how I can do this.
Yeah. And you can more times than not.
That's the thing. That's the thing.
Right.
We underestimate what we can do. And I want us to live life that's challenging enough that we explore the boundaries of what we can do, instead of staying within what I'm sure I can do.
The only caveat there is if it's out of your control. But I've learned myself over the years, even more in the last few, that when something pops up, I'm pretty good at getting around it. Even if it's a tech issue, I'm geeky. So it's like, oh, we have a problem. We pivot the other way. But without stress, that wouldn't come up. And it just might be a couple of flicks of stress. How are we going to do this? How's that going to go? Well, I'll figure it out. I'm dealing with an issue now, and a friend of mine is helping me from Florida remote in on a computer, and trying to figure out something. And I'm like, we're going to figure this out. I know we are. And I've known him since I was, I don't know, 19, and he's older than me. And we usually do, like, when we kind of, put it all together. I can sense in his text he's getting a little frustrated. I'm like, okay, all right, we got it. And he knows more than I do. So I have faith in him. That's the thing. I have faith in him, but we need to have also faith in ourselves. And I think that's where we go wrong.
Yeah. I remember the first flat screen TV I got. I was overwhelmed with trying to figure out how to set it up. And I called my son, who's really savvy with this stuff. And he said, Dad, you're smarter than the wires. You can do it. And sometimes it takes somebody else believing in us, somebody else seeing our potential and knowing it's there, and they hold that vision for us, and they might even give us some clues along the way until we get to that aha moment of, yeah, I can figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
I will figure this out. We can do this. Many
times it's a challenge to figure it out because you weren't challenged. If you're continually challenged, the figuring it out comes faster. And I have a pop-up on my screen when I get texts, and Jim from Florida just texted me and he wrote NVM, which means never mind, I figured it out. I know we can figure it out.
There you go.
I'm not even kidding.
There you go.
Yeah, I don't know what he did, but and I was, offering all different suggestions. What if we do this? What if we do that? But we need to challenge ourselves. We need not to worry, and we need to be better than okay. There's no reason why not.
And he had, and your friend Jim had a choice. He could have acknowledged defeat and just waited for you to walk him through the steps, but he didn't. He kept saying, I think I can do this. Let me try this. Let me try this. Let me try this. And when we do turn it into a game, when we turn it into a challenge, that's when we grow, and that's when and he's got to feel really good about himself for having done that.
The truth is, he knows way more than me. I think the difference is I have faith in him, because over the years I presented him with challenges, and I could throw him a popsicle stick and some Elmer's glue. He'll make something. He'll get it done. And my job is I just point things out. What if we did this? What if we did that? What if we did this? I don't know. I'm just throwing things out. He's the guy that figures it out. If you want to figure it out with help from you, we got to go to your website and start the process. If you're living that just okay life, hey, that's okay. Why wouldn't you? I was living an okay life. I didn't realize there was other stuff on the other side, and there's more good to come. And I firmly believe in that.
Yeah.
How do we find you, Bary?
Go to my website, www.drdr, Bary Fleet, BaryFleet.com. Watch my TEDx talk. Get a link to my book, Move Into Your Magnificence, 101 Invitations to a Life of Passion and Joy. Email me, text me, reach out. I want to help your life to be more than just okay.
Yeah, love it. Bary, always fantastic having you on. I mean this. I'm not trying to do a pun here. It's always magnificent having you on. I really mean that.
Thanks, Steve.
You have a way of looking at things and clarity and getting to the point. And it's stuff that we deal with all the time, even the imposter syndrome. I got a friend dealing with it now with a new job, and she doesn't think she's worthy. And yeah, we are. Just live.
And I'm glad she has you to believe in her.
And I do, and I tell her that all the time. You have no idea how good you are.
Because we need to surround ourselves with people who believe in us.
And my mom used to tell me that. Not even kidding. All right, Bary, thanks a lot. We'll talk soon.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.